Guilt can be a very good thing if it motivates you to do the right thing. Guilt can be a really, really bad thing though, if you carry it so heavily that it stops you from doing the right thing. If you feel pain, it's a good thing because it gives you a chance to course correct. If you feel guilt, it's a good thing. It gives you a chance to course correct. If you feel whatever negative emotion that you're feeling is good because it gives you a chance to course correct if you use it for those purposes. If guilt stops you from doing the right thing, it's bad. If pain stops you from doing the right thing, it's bad. I guess, let me actually rephrase that. It's not that it's bad. We use it badly. We use it for the wrong thing. Because there are worse things in the world, by the way, than losing someone close to you. One thing that's worse is losing someone that's close to you and then having your life collapse. Because now you've compounded the tragedy. So I was saying that some of these are different categories. Maybe this can make sense. These right here are these family problems. Yeah, I guess everything else is in a different category from these two. I don't know how to ask the question, but can anybody see where these like the difference between these two and all of the other ones? Exactly. These are out of our control. If your parents are divorcing, that's completely out of your control. Somebody else dying, unless you murdered them, completely out of your control. So like death and divorce, completely out of your control. Everything else that's up here in our control. How do you have less debt? Spend less money. Spend way less than you earn. And if you have trouble doing that, get a second job. Even if it's just a part-time minimum wage job. Get a job, and then everything that you earn from there can go towards that debt. There's always something that you can do to lower this. Student work, excuse me. Student work, put more time into it. And of course, then there's time management. What do you put less time into versus more time into? But that's something that's still within your control to get those things done. Gambling, once you start, it's kind of hard to stop if you're addicted to it. And we can all agree that gambling is a terrible disease. Horrible thing, destroys families, but it's also the only disease that you can earn $1 million from. All that my uncle got was death. He didn't get $1 million. Sports, the time you put into it is time away. You can always quit the sport, but unless you've already made that obligation to your team, I guess it's within our control to maintain the obligation. But once you make the obligation, it's kind of out of your control because you need to follow through on it. Don't make an obligation if you're not going to follow through on it. And so, but these two here, divorce and death, those are the ones that are really hard for us because those are the things that, I don't know how to say it, they're almost like cosmic in the sense like if an asteroid's head for Earth and it's going to hit us, there's nothing we can do about that. Everything else, if there's something that we can do about it, it gives us a sense of power and control over our own lives. It's those random things that happen to us that you're just like walking down the street on a Tuesday afternoon. All of a sudden it hits you and you're just like, I have no control over this. And it's like, I think back, for example, when my mom died, she had a heart attack. I was visiting a former professor of mine, and we were talking, and I got a phone call from my dad. And the phone call from my dad was like him just like panicking basically, and say, because he didn't know CPR, he didn't know he couldn't do anything for her. She was having a heart attack in front of him. He'd already called 911, they were on the way, but it was that sense of like complete helplessness that messes with you. And that literally was just me walking through a hallway on a random afternoon and getting that phone call. And you're miles away and there's nothing that you can do about it. And then once you're in the hospital, there's nothing that you can do about it there. Those are the hard ones. And those are the ones that sometimes we say like, you just have to accept it. Well, good luck. Good luck, especially if there's like some little thing that you feel like you could have done. Oh, I could have been there, I could have done this, I could have done that, Those are the ones that tend to mess with you. But those are also the ones that you have to look at and just shrug your shoulders and say, sometimes life just happens. And a lot of times, life just happens. There's this tendency on our part to always look for like who's at fault. Whose fault is this? When something goes wrong at a business, Very oftentimes we want to find out first whose fault is it before we fix it, which is very different. If you ever see like a Japanese company, it's very different. They don't operate that way. They find problems, they fix them. They almost never assign blame to somebody. I mean, when there is someone to blame, we all kind of know who it is. You don't have to go and launch a full investigation to find out who it is, because the responsibilities are pretty well delineated. But you'll find that, especially like in our culture, we go out of our way to shift the blame away from ourselves. You know, gambling, it's not my fault, it's the casino that keeps giving me lines of credit. It's my genetics, it's my upbringing. You know, it's the debt, it was all the pressures of the responsibilities that I had. You know, schoolwork, it's it's how much work I'm being given, it's how little time I have. Sports, time away from our families, why I have to do this sport. But once you can kind of realize, like I realized at one point in my life, I don't have to do anything except for stay white and die. And those two things are completely out of my control. Everything else is a choice. And once you recognize that everything else is a choice, life doesn't seem nearly as tragic. Now, of course, there are little things out of your control. I mean, I'm saying lots of things out of your control, like the asteroid hitting, death, which I said I can't control, parents divorcing. Now, the hard part is to absorb those blows and not feel the guilt for them. Like I'm thinking of a student I had 3 or 4 years ago, and her parents were divorcing and was talking to her about it, and she completely blamed herself because she had her parents were arguing at one point, and she like started ditching school and causing problems, and then like a year later they filed for divorce, and she like in her head it was her fault because she caused so much stress between them. Of course, it had nothing to do with that, but we sometimes internalize the guilt too much. Guilt can be a very good thing if it motivates you to do the right thing. Guilt can be a really, really bad thing, though, if you carry it so heavily that it stops you from doing the right thing. You know? Like there are people who feel so guilty because they've done something wrong, and they feel so guilty about it that they're just like, oh, I'm just a miserable piece of shit, and I don't deserve to live, and whatever bad stuff happens to me, I deserve to have happen to me. But, you know, people make mistakes, people screw up. The question is, do you come back and do better? But there are people who never give themselves the chance to come back and do better. They only make things worse for themselves, dump on themselves, and then there's like a spiral. It's like you find people who don't think very highly of themselves, and they kind of put themselves in the back burner their whole life, and they give everything they have to other people because they just don't feel like they're worthy in ways. So the first thing is to use those negative emotions, which are there because they warn us about something. It's kind of like pain. Why does pain exist? What does it warn us of? It warns us about injury. Pain and injury are two very different things. If you're an athlete, hopefully you recognize the difference between pain and injury. Pain means something hurts. That doesn't mean you stop. Injury means, well, you need to do something about it because your arm is broken or your leg is broken or your heart has stopped or whatever. But those two things are very different. And when you conflate the two, and strong people know the difference between pain and injury. Weak people conflate those two things. If I'm in pain, I need to stop. No, pain just tells you that you need to redirect yourself in some way. So if you're feeling like emotional pain, there's something in your life that's causing that emotional pain. You need to redirect yourself and grow from it. If I stick my finger in your arm like this will be very annoying to you. After a while, it will cause pain. But if you do this for long enough, it actually will break through your skin and start causing injury. So you have to adjust yourself. There are a lot of things in life like that are poking us like this that we have to readjust ourselves from to recognize that difference between the pain and the injury. If you feel pain, it's a good thing because it gives you a chance to course correct. If you feel guilt, it's a good thing. It gives you a chance to course correct. If you feel whatever negative emotion that you're feeling is good because it gives you a chance to course correct if you use it for those purposes. If guilt stops you from doing the right thing, it's bad. If pain stops you from doing the right thing, it's bad. I guess, let me actually rephrase that. It's not that it's bad. We use it badly. We use it for the wrong thing. All of these things that we struggle with in life, they're not good things in the sense that they're positive, but they're good things in that they give us a chance to shape ourselves. We struggle with schoolwork because we're concerned about this thing about future opportunities. Yeah, but what great thing can you do in your life without learning how to balance things out? You know, if you're going to have a job that's going to be satisfying in the sense that it makes the most of your talents, it's not going to be like a clock in and go home at the end of the day kind of a job. It's going to be something that you're going to have to balance multiple responsibilities in. If any of you ever hope to be an entrepreneur, own a business, you can't do that well unless you learn how to do this well. In other words, this is just a training ground for the future. This is just that finger in the arm that's teaching you how to adjust yourself so that you can accomplish. Learning how to deal with these things that are out of our control, that's exactly what it is. You can learn from it how to deal with things that are out of your control. It's not that you can stop death. It's not that you can stop divorce. But it is that you can stop letting it damage you to the point that you just collapse. In other words, if you've ever lost someone really close to you, you know that you have every reason in the world, and that's not even an excuse, it's every reason in the world to just give up and stop. But you also now have an opportunity to overcome that. Because there are worse things in the world, by the way, than losing someone close to you. One thing that's worse is losing someone that's close to you and then having your life collapse. Because now you've compounded the tragedy. And so, sports, time, which sports is a good thing for developing that character anyway. But the point is that when you say life teaches us that we're never happy except at the price of some ignorance, yeah, we stay ignorant of the opportunities that these things create. I'm not saying to ever look at this and say, oh, good, I'm in debt. Oh, good, my uncle died and my parents are divorcing. But to sit there, maybe fold your arms and go, these people have died. Now what? And yes, mourn, be sad, it sucks, of course. I'm in debt, I've gotten myself into this problem. Now what? It's the now what that causes you to either grow or to compound the tragedy. So I guess that's the question. Do you want your life to be one of growth or the product of compounded tragedy? There's the choice. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Wednesday.